Thanks so much for having me here today. This is kind of fun. I am not really a public speaker at all. I prefer to write behind a computer screen and write my notes. So I'm hoping my notes that I've prepared will come to you the way they should. And today, this morning, instead of your husband giving the elbow, we're praying that the Holy Spirit just pricks our heart in the areas that we need to be. So be open and aware of that. We don't need a man. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to share, and again, a lot of this is going to come from my own story and from what we've been through. Like I mentioned last night, a lot of what Joe and I have shared has been from him overcoming trauma and all of his issues and all of his baggage that he brought into our relationship. But it turns out I have just as many flaws and I have just as much work to do. And it was in the story of our marriage, after we had to kind of overcome some of his stuff, that God's like, it's you too. It's not just him that's got issues and baggage. And so I thought, well, I want to talk about loving our husbands. We all want to love our husbands. We come to a marriage conference, love our husbands. But I thought about it, as women, I think we're good at relationships for the most part. Like, we like relationships, we thrive in relationship, and we do actually know quite a bit here. Like, we're good at this, right? Like, we're the ones who say, husband, we got to work on our marriage. We got to go to the marriage conference. I want to get better at this. So I thought, do I really need to tell you how to love your husbands? So I just want to ask audience participation. What's one way that you can love your husband? Like, we know this stuff, right? Anybody? I mean, I can change my talk, but support him. Yeah, we can support him. Buy him chocolate. Yeah. Being yourself around him. Okay. Smile, we can do that. Yes? Yeah, make it. Learn to be safe when you talk about them. So I feel like we all kind of know in our hearts how we should love our husbands. That's my opinion. We kind of know. We're good at this. But I do believe that in my journey to love my husband, that we get in the way of ourselves and we have pitfalls. So my talk today was our pitfalls to intimacy. And we all want intimacy with our husbands. And we talked about this last night, the intimacy. We want to be seen by our husbands. We want to be known. We want to be loved. We want to delight in our husbands. I mean, whatever the it in our relationship is, we kind of know that's the it we want. Like, just to go, we're good, and I feel safe with you, and I love being with you. And we obviously can refer to that to sexual intimacy, which is really just an expression of what we've built, right? That safety and that love and that delight. So I thought, what are the things that get in the way of getting the intimacy? We want intimacy with our husbands. We are good at relationships. So what gets in the way? On our end, not on our husband's end. That's in the other room. They're going to deal with their own stuff. So I have 4 things that we fall into as women that prevent us from the intimacy that we want, the things that kind of trip us up along the way. We want to smile when our husband comes home, but we don't. We want to support him, but we don't. We want to do that nice thing for him, but we don't. What gets in the way? So I'm just going to give you a little acronym because this is how I kind of think. But my basic answer is don't be a crab. So that's our talk today is a crab, which is C-R-A-B. And again, we can work on us. We can't fix our husbands. We said last night. We can take responsibility for our own attitudes and where we're at, and what we can do to help intimacy to grow in our own hearts, being fertile to intimacy, right? Being like a soft ground where that can grow. So it doesn't mean that our husband's going to necessarily offer that or reciprocate, but it's saying on our end, I want my heart to be softened toward my husband. I want it to be a fertile place for it to grow. So my C is critical, right? Criticism. Now, criticism shows up in a lot of different ways. And again, this is my flaw. But the first kind of innocent criticism is you're doing it wrong. Okay, I'm just going to start. If your husband do anything wrong once in a while, he does it wrong, and it's frustrating, and you want to point it out. It's just, rawr. That's how it feels for me. Correcting, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. We're all good at saying these things, okay? God gave us insight. We know the things he's doing wrong. It's like right there in front of us. But that does get in the way of us having intimacy. Now, some of it is necessary criticism, which I always ask myself, if I'm going to critique my husband on something, is, will he thank me for pointing this out? So again, you've got spinach in your teeth, sweetheart. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. This is east on the highway instead of west on the highway. Wow, you just saved me this idea of we truly want to help our husbands and say, hey, this is something that's going to be helpful. The second thing I ask myself if I'm offering criticism is, why am I offering this criticism? Why? And for me, 9 times out of 10, it was because I want him to know that he's wrong. That's not a good enough reason. I want him to know that he's wrong. That's when we know our hearts are in the wrong place. I want him to know that I'm right, then he's wrong. But with criticism that we're offering here, with saying, hey, maybe you could do that better, maybe you could do that better, maybe you could do that better. But all that productive criticism won't even be productive if our husbands don't trust us. They're just over our head. Because if they say, hey, all you're trying to do here is show me that I'm wrong, then I'm not going to worry about which way I'm going the highway. You're doing it wrong, and we end up in the wrong town. So that's the innocent part of the criticism. The second part of the criticism, and this is kind of when Joe and I talked about the Gottmans, did a lot of studies on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is like when you know the relationship is dying, right? And criticism is like that first sign that things are in the wrong direction. And the reason that criticism is so dangerous is because it comes from you did it wrong to you are wrong. And it's a flat-out character assassination. You are a bad person. You are not worthy. It says criticism is an attack on your partner's character. You're not just criticizing a behavior, but who they are. It's a persistent and negative personality flaw. That's tough. If we hear that, we're going, yeah, do I ever do that? Do I ever act as if like you are just have a bad personality? So how do you know you're in the pit? You fall into the pit of criticism. These are the words you will hear coming out of your mouth. You should, right? You're not doing this right, you should. That's a hard one. Joe and I have been working on this lately, and we're like, oh my goodness, how many times does that come out of your mouth, right? You should. You always, right? Personality flaw, you never, character flaw, or why do you? Why do you do that, right? That's an attack. So maybe some of you have been, well, I'm not saying maybe, all of us have been the recipient of that kind of criticism as well. And we don't like it either, right? That when someone's attacking who we are, we can never get it right, telling us what we should do. It's not helpful. It's reminding him that he is wrong and not necessarily that we're hurt. He's bad as a person. He didn't make a mistake. He is a mistake. And that sometimes we don't say those things directly, but that's what our husbands are hearing us say. You are a mistake. You are wrong. This affects our intimacy because we don't want to be close to people that are bad, that get it wrong. Like if you find someone that you don't like, even at work, and they do it wrong, you don't find yourself saying, let's go hang out this weekend. So the ability to not be thinking so negatively about our husbands absolutely, positively affects our ability to be intimate with him and to have that closeness with him. And for us, it was really difficult because my husband grew up with a very critical mother, and maybe you did too. So he was so sensitive, and he had heard his whole life, you can't ever do it right. You're a blankety blank blank blank. So whenever I kind of came in with a criticism, it was doubled up in his head by his mother's voice and going, that's it. And then he kind of pushed back at anything I said he's wrong. And it was a really typical part in our marriage because I'm like, I'm just being helpful, I just need to tell you these things. But he was like, my mother told me I was wrong. So it's a really key thing is to figure out criticism with, again, the damage we do when we say that you are wrong and that you've done wrong. So our remedy to criticism when we find ourselves in there is the idea of expressing a need or a feeling, right? We can express how it affects us, right? This is how your behavior affects me. That is legit. So when you're, like your husband's coming home late every day or not coming home on time when he said he would, right? You're wrong. You're always late. You never come home on time. You can't keep track of time. What's wrong with your time management skills? And we are attacking versus saying, when you're late, I feel, like you've forgotten about me, or it's inconvenient when I'm trying to plan a meal, or I feel like I'm not a priority to you, or I miss you. Just expressing how So I think anything we're correcting our husbands on, we first have to say, how does it really affect me? Now, again, a lot of these things absolutely do affect us. We're married, so our husband's flaws will affect us. But when we're presenting a criticism, to go, not just, by the way, you're wrong. You're just late, and you're lazy, and you can't keep track of your time. That doesn't really help our marriages versus saying, hey, this is how it affects me. The other thing I think about is, flipping the script. How would I want my husband to address a flaw in myself? Is this how I want someone to talk to me? What I want him to say, what's wrong with you? Why can't you be on time? What's wrong with you? Why can't you find your charger? You never know where your charger is. What's wrong with you? It's like, oh, I hate when if he says that. And then I think to myself, how do I want my husband to feel? Do I want my husband to feel ashamed of himself? Do I want my husband to feel like a failure? Do I want my husband to feel wrong? Do I want my husband, right? We do this. We go, I hope he feels what? And we should say, I want my husband to feel encouraged. I want my husband to know I support him. It's like the verse in Hebrews when it says, we spur each other on towards love and good works. Is this a spurring on to love and good works, or is this a punching down of who he is as a person? So for a little bit of a action note, is to ask yourself, again, in prayer as you seek the Lord, what are those areas that you're tempted to be critical where you shouldn't be? There's a temptation. That's our temptation point right there. It's like that issue right there. It's the being late. It's the toothpaste on the sink. It's the way he talks to his coworker. There's something in you that you go, every time he does that thing, you're just the critical little flip goes on. You're like, that's, just that little comes in until they'll spot those areas and say, God, I've got to rethink how I look at this flaw in my husband. Or the areas that you've made personal, that because the toothpaste is left in the sink, we've now assassinated his character instead of saying, it just grosses me out. Like, it's not personal. It just grosses me out. What are the areas that you're saying you always, you never? And those are, again, it's not saying we can't pretend these issues don't exist, because they do, but to say, how am I responding to these issues? And if we don't deal with those issues that you go, we're going to lead to the R. So our C is the criticism, and the R is the next part on our part as women that hurt our intimacy and we fall into. Can anyone take a guess what the R in marriage is that does so much damage? It's a big one. I'm like a teacher by trade. Like, what? Right? Respect. That would be a good thing. I know a bad thing. A bad thing that starts with R. The R word. Resentment. Okay, class, you gotta study better next time. No, you didn't get the book. You're okay. Resentment. It almost makes me want to cry when I hear that word. It's such an ugly, awful word in our lives, isn't it? But I don't think it's a matter of how to avoid resentment. It's like how to deal with it, because it's going to show up in our marriages. Your husband will hurt you. Your husband has hurt you. We already know that. So how do we attack this issue of resentment? So resentment, if we think about what it is, it's a reaction to being mistreated or wronged. So we can admit that you've been wronged. Like my husband said last night, right? You most likely have been wronged in some ways. But it leads to a cocktail of bitterness, disgust, disappointment, disapproval. So if we're thinking about marriage and a happy marriage conference, right? Reality is we deal with bitterness, disgust, disappointment, and disapproval. When we're resentful, we become very unattractive. We all know someone in our lives who resentment has eaten away at the very core of who they are. They become unattractive. And then one description of resentment that I ran into that I absolutely loved was it's an emotion of justice. Think about that, an emotion of justice. It's being fueled by a sense of justice, like this was wrong, right? That we need to hold on to it to take a stance in that behavior. I am not going to stand for this kind of mistreatment, and we're just pulling down that judge's gavel. Now, I struggled with resentment way longer than I even realized I was struggling with it. It can kind of creep on the ledges of our lives, right? We have people who've been eaten by resentment, and it shows. But I think all of us keep a little pet in our closet once in a while. We take it out when we're feeling sorry for ourselves when our husband wrongs us. See all the things he once did wrong to me. And we feed it, and it's not fair, and it's not fair. But over time, it kind of grew and grew till suddenly I found myself lashing out. But you don't know how hard that was. And this is like the work we had to do, right? You don't know how that made me feel, right? And Joe's kind of like, whoa. And I was like, I think I got a lot of stuff in here. I got a lot of resentment. And some of it was fueled with the truth of ways he'd hurt me, and some of it was fueled with like lies of motivations I had tagged to him to say, but you were trying to do this. And he's like, that was not what I was trying to do. Like, we're putting stories in our head of why he was hurtful to me. So how do you know you're in the pit of resentment? Right, you're saying, it's not right, it's not fair. You're saying, how dare he? So we say in our head. Now, this might be words we say in our head or words we say when we're going to bed at night. How dare he? Constant negative feelings, can't let go, recurring thoughts. You're building a case against your husband. You now have a list in your head. And then body language-wise, we got the eye roll going. Now, I didn't always roll my eyes at my husband, but I rolled my eyes in my head at my husband. You know, you're like, but inside you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. How dare he? But watch that in yourself. If you smell just a tinge of an eye roll, you know that you're falling into that pit of resentment, and it's not going to go away on its own. This is an amazing book I read a few years ago, and this was a big part of me seeing where I was at. It's called The Calvary Road. It's a little baby book. Our pastor had given it to us. And it kind of goes back to this criticism, the story of the moat, the speck and the plank. So what we're criticizing. Yeah, The Calvary Road by Roy Hession. It's a little baby book. It is just got so much, it hits you hard. He doesn't stick around. But he talks about the moat and the speck. And he says, now we all know what Jesus meant by the mote or the speck in the other person's eye. It is some fault which we fancy we can discern in him. It may be an act he has done against us or some attitude he adopts toward us. But what does the Lord mean by the beam in our eye? I suggest that the beam in our eye is simply our unloving reaction to the other man's mote. Like, they do something small, and we're just overreacting and making it so much worse. Without doubt, there is wrong in the other person, but our reaction to that wrong is wrong too. The mote in him has provoked in us resentment, coldness, criticism, bitterness, or evil speaking, or ill will. All of them variants of the basic ill, which is unlove. And that, says the Lord Jesus, is far, far worse than the tiny wrong, sometimes unconscious, that provoked it. That's so interesting how resentment starts that way. Sometimes it is just this like thing that we build and we build and we build and we build. We also hang on to resentment for the pride part because it's justice. So when we judge someone else, we're automatically saying, hey, we're above you. We have enough knowledge and understanding to judge the other person, how they're acting. And we want our side to win. So then when we take criticism, you're wrong, resentment, I'm right, then we get ourselves into contempt, which is like the number one marriage killer. And just to be aware of that in our hearts, because there was a time that God showed to me in the way I was speaking to my husband that had all these negative feelings. The way looking down on your husband and going, you know, it's horrible, it's sinful, and needs to be repented of. The Bible talks about judging, and it's not so much that we can't judge each other, but it puts a lot of caveats on how we judge. Number one, we judge ourselves first. And that's why we're here, right? We're going to draw a circle around ourselves and work on everybody in that circle. We judge ourselves first, then we have more perspective to give grace to others that we judge and not be careless in how we judge. Obviously, resentment is going to affect your intimacy. I mean, I'm just going to state it, right? We do not feel like cozying and cuddling with our husbands and saying, let's hang out together when we are resentful. It just kills any mood that could be ever created. And I feel like when you're holding on to the resentment and criticism and contempt, but yet we want this lovey love over here, right? We want the intimacy that we want in our marriages. And it's like if you go to your favorite restaurant with your favorite meal and everything is so beautiful, but you have a stomach ache and you are nauseous. You're sitting at that table and you're going, I can't eat this. I love garlic mashed potatoes, but do not give me any, right? We cannot enjoy a beautiful feast of intimacy when we've got that sour stomach and we want to throw up. And the only way to enjoy that meal is to say, I got to go to the bathroom, get rid of all this junk I'm holding on to, that I can come back to the table and enjoy this meal. And I think for a while there, I wanted to hold both. Like, hey, I want to love my husband and be really close to him, but I want to kind of hold on to some of this like junk I have against him. And you really don't enjoy the meal when you've got a sour stomach. So how do we get out of the pit of resentment? So one is to deal, we talked about this last night, with forgiveness. Deal with your past hurts and name them with your husband. Where were you wronged? Now, I think it's important at this point to categorize some of these things. We have a big category of petty things we're hanging on to. You know, my birthday, you got the wrong color card for me. You should have known I like pink and not purple. You know, we do those small things and go, you know what, he was a young husband. He didn't know what he was doing. I'm just going to, not hold on to that and say, why can't you ever get the right color card for me? Petty. Then we have the everyday hurts going, I've never told him that hurt me. When you told my mother that my blah, 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 that really affected me. And I've held on to that for a while. I never told you the way those words affected me. So that's a conversation you have with your husband. And this is not all one day we're flowing everything on them. It's those times that you're saying, hey, I got to tell you something, that this is on me. I should have told you a long time ago how this affected me. Again, not you. I never told you how hard it affected me. This is a process. You're working through hurts. It's going to be some time. Then our third category is going to be not hurts and not petty things, but major betrayals. So if you have a story that involves a major betrayal, then you want to bring a third party into it and begin processing that. It's not a conversation. That's going to be time. So let's not kind of put everything in the same category as he got the wrong color card to, he gambled away our life savings. Those things we want to get support and help with when we're dealing with resentment. Having unsaid things between us don't help intimacy, right? So intimacy, this idea of being naked and unashamed with each other, that we can just share, be ourselves, right? Support each other. And we have all these things we haven't said to each other, and he hasn't told us this, and we haven't told him that. We're not going to find the intimacy that we want. When we read the Bible about marriage, and we have a lot of marriage advice perhaps, but I remember hearing a while ago that all of the one another's that happen in marriage, that happen in the Bible, apply to our marriage too. It's not just like love one another and this for another, but that doesn't apply to your husband. So Colossians 3 has so much good truth about that if we read through Colossians. And so regarding this, it says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. So again, this applies to our husbands when we get up in the morning, right? Compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience. Bear with one another and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone, including your husband, including him. Forgive as the Lord has forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them together in perfect unity. So as you're moving on your action step, what hurts in your marriage you've not addressed that need to be addressed? And I guess I think you kind of write these things down and go, okay, what's the big ones I got to get through first? What are the little ones I really just need to go get over it, girl? And what are the ones saying I need support in this area? I need a really trusted third party to walk through this with. So don't confuse those categories because it takes a lot of wisdom and insight to deal with some of those hurts. But we have to name it. We can't fix it if we can't name it. And so a lot of times, like for me, I was going, oh my, I'm resentful. I've been making these assumptions about my husband's motivations. I've been doing those things. So if they're being a crabby wife, we don't want to be a crabby wife. The C is for criticism. There we go. R is for? Got that. Again, this is not just about loving our husbands early. This is about being at peace with ourselves, right? Peace is an inside job. So regardless of where your husbands are at, because I'm sure some of them are fantastic and some of them are really struggling. So this is really about having peace with our own hearts for where you know God wants to be soft in our hearts and not be resentful, regardless of what the people in our lives are doing. So when I think about my story again and things that have stopped me from enjoying the intimacy with my husband that I want to enjoy, the things we keep tripping up to, I'm critical of him, I'm telling him he's wrong, I'm holding on to hurts, and A is another one that we women sometimes struggle with, assuming. We're good assumers because we're smart, and we're good. We make connections, we're good at relationships, we're just like figuring it out. But assuming gets us into a lot of trouble very quickly. I like to think, again, because we make connections quickly, but there's 3 areas that cause the most misunderstandings. We assume he knows what we want. Now, first of all, I don't even know what I want. So we really have to give our husbands some slack. Now, some of you may be married longer, your husbands have a little more experience, and they know what you want. But trust me, even like 50 years of marriage, you're like, I don't know what she wants. I don't know. So we can't assume they know what you want. We don't know. We want them to know. Why don't we tell them what we want? Well, we don't want to risk not getting it. Honey, I really, really want this. And he's like, why would you want that? So it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It takes a vulnerability to tell somebody what you want, especially someone that's close to you that you feel should take care of that. We want, in a perfect world, him to know. I want him to just know. I do. I want him to just know. That's what I want. I want you to just know what I want. That's what I want. Now, just because we want it doesn't mean we get it. Doesn't mean we want it, does not mean we're entitled to it. But in general, we can assume your husband doesn't know what you want. A lot of times your husband wants to know. Just tell him what you want. So that's your takeaway. Tell him what you want. Again, not tell him what to do. You can't tell him what to do. You can tell him what you want. I want, to go out to dinner for my birthday. Right? Okay. I can work with that, right? Either I'll do it or won't do it. We can't do it this year. Okay. So we don't know what we want. We also assume, this goes back to the one we just discussed, which is that he knows that what he did was hurtful. This is really hard, guys. Can I tell you that? This is really hard because there's some things that have hurt us so bad. And what makes us resentful is going, didn't you know that was hurtful? How could you not know how much that hurt me? So we're getting the assumptions in with the resentment. He doesn't always know. And this is kind of regarding those category 1 and category 2 things. If he drained your bank account and gambled it away, maybe he should know that's hurtful, but that's different. But I think a lot of the things we hang on to, we assume that he knows that what he did was hurtful. And it's not really fair to our husbands if we don't ever tell him that he did what is hurtful, right? When you were late last night, when you said you'd be home, that hurt me. When you went to bed, you never said goodnight to me. That was hurtful. You walked in the door and you barely noticed me. You went right to the dog and just ignored me. That made me feel hurt. When you were with your coworker, you said this to me and you said this and it hurt me. When we were with my mother, that hurt me. Like, they don't always know, and it's not always because they don't care. In order to prevent resentment, we have to say the things that hurt us. And again, not attacking, not criticizing, but we can tell him our feelings. He may not be able to process all of them. I just learned that too. Sometimes we have way more feelings than our husband can process all at the same time. We're going like this, and he's like, I'm still on point number 1. Give him grace to process those. But he's our husband, right? We can tell him our feelings. Here's how I'm feeling. I feel insecure when you say this to so-and-so. That makes me feel less valuable when you do this. That hurt me when you forgot my anniversary. Whatever. I don't know if that's true, but right? Instead of saying, how could you, how dare you, that really hurt me that you forgot that it was our anniversary today. So we assume he knows, and then we have resentment that he doesn't know. So let's not assume that he knows. And the third thing that we assume is that he thinks like you. A plus B equals C. And then when he comes to a different conclusion than we are, we're like, where did that come from? Of course, since we're running late, we're not going to get gas. Like, of course. It's like, well, no, I was thinking we'll get gas, then we'll skip the coffee run. I don't know. Like, we assume and we jump ahead. And that leads to those misunderstandings. Then we're just on different planes and we're mad at each other for having different conclusions. So how do you know you've fallen into the pit of assumptions? You are saying to yourself or to your husband, how could you not know? How could you not know? But if I said that to any of you right now, I think you'd be insulted, right? You didn't get here at 9 o'clock? How could you not know that it starts at 9 o'clock? Like, you'll all be insulted if I said that to you, right? You walk in late. Didn't you know? Like, it said on the book, 9 o'clock, it starts. So if you're saying to yourself, how could you not know? If you're easily offended, if you're taking offense and offense and offense, you've been probably assuming a lot. And it leads to misunderstanding. Misunderstanding leads to hurt feelings. Hurt feelings leads to, we don't need intimacy. Or fine, you stay over there. I'll stay over here. You don't want to cuddle with your spouse on the couch. If you're offended and irritated that he just doesn't know, you're not going to lean into him when those things are not clear. Anyone else struggle with assuming? It's not just me, right? Okay, I assume so many things. And you know, I tell my husband this lately. It's like, honey, I'm like, well, because you usually get it right, so I'm sometimes assuming the best about you. Like, you get it. It's like, I don't always get it. I don't always get it. We're allowed to tell our husbands what we want, what we feel, what our thought process is. Now, they are not required to agree with us. They're not required to do everything we want. They're not required to, they're not our slaves. But I think as women, we need to just be vulnerable enough to say, here's what I wanted. Here's what I was hoping for. And be vulnerable enough to go, he might not like it. He might say something wrong. I don't know. But so our action steps would be clear and concise. I know we say that a lot, but really it's hard. I have a lot of words. And I have words, and so it's like, just get to the point. What do you want? What do you want? Tell him. That was hurtful. All of our husbands, and I think all of us here, would much more appreciate just come out and say, that hurt me, than spending 3 weeks, just, we hold it in our heads for like weeks later. The thing you said to your coworker about my cooking, whatever, I don't know. Just tell them in a very polite, loving way. Say, my goal is for understanding, connection, intimacy. And sometimes even said, Joe, there's something that's bothered me. I want to be close to you right now, but I feel like I don't want to go there because I'm dealing with my own stuff right now. Can I share that with you? Okay. I'm so upset about last Friday, but my goal is what? My goal is not to insult him, tell him he's wrong. I want to be connected to you again, and I know that my feelings about this issue is getting in the way of us being close. Can I just clear the air real quickly? I got really offended by the way you said that, and it bothered me. Then most likely it was like, that's all? I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Let's work on that. Okay. Come here, babe. Let's hug. And it's so much better than, So think about yourself, the places that you've assumed you were wrong. So that's your homework item. Where have you assumed that has not helped you? It doesn't help us as women. We self-sabotage. It does not help us. Where do we need to give him grace that he just does not know? I know my heart. I just want him to know. I want him to know. I want him to know. We need to give him grace. He may not know everything that he needs to know. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you. Sometimes we assume that because he doesn't know something, he doesn't love us, and that's where we get offended. He doesn't love us because he didn't know this. Let's give him grace. Sometimes he just doesn't know. That's what my husband's answer is, Lise. Honey, I don't know. And that's vulnerable to say that too, right? I don't know. Shouldn't you know? Shouldn't you know? No, but just don't know. So give him grace for not knowing something. If he doesn't know something that you want, if he doesn't know that you were hurt, if he doesn't know, you'll feel better. I guarantee you. You'll feel better than if you're just hanging it over his head that he doesn't know. So we don't want to be crabby women. We don't want to be critical. We don't want to be resentful. We don't want to be assuming. And then the other thing that gets in the way of intimacy with our husbands, the way we really love them well, is the B. And we get busy. Busy, busy. I know this is something that people talk about quite a bit, but we have to address it. Busy is when our time and energy are so stretched thin that we don't have time for the things that matter most. And obviously you're here because we know our marriages matter a lot. Marriages need time and energy and investment and more investment and time and energy. That's why you're here. So far, so good. You could be busy doing a lot of things right now. And my husbands are talking about that over there too. Like, hey, you need time. So we're gonna be on the same page here. So if your husband comes back and says we need to spend more time together, you're like, all right, that's right. But there's different kinds of busy we get into. First of all, I looked at the basic study or idea is that most married couples, time a week in solid quality connection time is 20 minutes a week. 3-4 minutes a day. Not just in the room together, but heart to heart, eye to eye, talk, right? We're connecting here, we're talking about things that matter. How are you doing? I'm feeling, I want. 20 minutes a week. A relationship cannot be sustained on that. We know that. It's not being invested in. It's just throwing your money market investments in the garbage, eventually you're gonna run out. It's not gonna grow. The number they say is more closer to 90 to 180 minutes a week. So an hour and a half, an hour and a half to 2 or 3 hours a week total of time where you're connecting. And not you're just rushing it. But I don't know for you, but I need open-ended time. I got into a thing with my husband, and this is part of what he talked about, is oh, honey, I got 10 minutes. What do you need to talk about? I'm 10 minutes? What do you need to talk about? 10-minute mark, I'm just getting started. I'm just getting started. But it's true. And for those who have little kids, sometimes you go to bed at night, you're chucking them in, and they're 8 years old. Okay, good night. And all of a sudden, Mommy, why is it this? You're like, really? Right now you want to have this big talk. Right when you're going to bed. But you know what? There's that fertile time with your kids in bed. You're like, you know what? I'm going to stay up with them 15 more minutes, maybe a half an hour, because this is a really big question they just brought up. But our marriages need that time. We can't just say, we're going to have 10 minutes to discuss our feelings and our hurts and our desires, and then we're going to go to the next thing. We got to have room to wiggle, to go 10 minutes you finally feel comfortable, and so they're saying, oh, by the way, honey, can we talk about that? I wanted to share something with you about that. And I might need more than 10 minutes. I might need 20 minutes. I might need 30 minutes. We might need to be in a place where we can cry. Ugly cry. That word doesn't always work for date night. Be at home where you can ugly cry a little bit when you have those times. We can't get so busy to attend to our hearts and to our needs as women. So it's not our marriage needs that time to grow. So if you're saying, I'm too busy, we don't have time for that, maybe next time, maybe later comes really quickly. You're not too busy. And this is one area that actually Joe and I have been probably the most intentional on with our time. We have a lot of time together, and that's the only reason we're able to work through these things is time. We have every morning we sit down and have coffee together for a half an hour to 45 minutes. Now, sometimes it's heart talk, so it's just logistics, right? We also need logistics talk with our husbands. Where are you going? How are we going? We got to have the budget talk sometimes. Somewhere in there you got to talk about the budget. Somewhere you got to talk about these things. You got time for the logistics of your family, logistics of your household. How are we handling Christmas? What's going on with your job? But then sometimes we need those heart times where we're just going, I'm really discouraged. I hate my job. Oh, we got to talk about that. We got to talk about that. That's a big deal, right? How can I support you? So we need time in our marriage. We cannot be overly busy where we're not having that time to invest. Now, sometimes we get busy because life throws things at us. Children need time investment. I've had 4 kids, so there's times busy. But also we can get to a point where busy becomes a crutch to avoid things that we need to that we're avoiding. We're not dealing with stuff. So therefore, if you're too busy to talk, you don't ever have to have the hard conversation about what happened last Friday. So busyness can be a cause of our disconnect or can be an effect of our disconnect. Because once you're disconnected from your husband, well, then you find other ways to be busy. You don't want to sit at home looking at him all day because that's uncomfortable and awkward. So think about what is the effect that busyness is having on you. And this is different for everybody. Some people have a higher level. They can keep their brains and lives up here. Some people need less. So it's kind of knowing your own heart. But are you snappy, right? Are you saying maybe later? Are you saying maybe next time, maybe tomorrow? It doesn't bring us fertile ground. So that's where, again, work with your husband. I am feeling, right, overwhelmed. I want more time together. I think we should have more time together, right? How can we do that? Maybe he's the one who's really busy. Maybe it's you. Every marriage has got their own mix of lifestyles and the struggles that you have. So, everyone's life is different with your workload and what your people that you have in your life. But this is a huge part of our marriage, is to not be so busy that we don't have time. It's in the relationship with the Lord, right? We can't put him into 10-minute slots, right? It's this active, growing relationship. And one way you know that, too, is you're not having the same conversation. Joe and I talk about this a lot. Like, if you're having the same conversation, you're like, wait a minute, we're growing anywhere. We're having the same conversation versus going, we're somewhere different now. We're moving on to the next thing. And it doesn't mean that some conversations have to be had 20 times before you finally get it. But we want to make sure that we are giving the time that our marriages need to create that sense of intimacy and that time of it's just us. Even if you're at home and the kids are sleeping, that you can shut the world out. Not a good feeling when it's like, it's me and you, honey. It's just me and you in the end. We're not worried about all these other things that are pulling at us. And that teamwork that you develop allows you to attack the other parts you're busy in such a different way then. Because suddenly, when the core is strong, then you're better equipped to handle those other busy parts of your life that are stressing you out. Because you're like, okay, we got this. And this past week has been like a crazy week for my husband and I. We are so happy to be here, but we knew when we said yes, we're like, this is the end of fundraiser week, which is like the hardest week for my husband, physically, emotionally, long hours, pressure, right? Like, we barely had time this week. We're like, should we like spend more time like working on this? We want to, but our marriage here was strong in the middle to go, okay, this is a busy week. We have a lot going on. But our unity that we developed helped us to attack that this week. We're going, okay, we got a lot going on. We got this and that. And we really want to sleep in. That's all we want to do. We're up so early. It's like, I'm taking Monday off. We are sleeping in. So busy does happen, but I think we need to be able to be intentional to know in our hearts, why are we saying yes to something? Back to the why. Because it's not right or wrong. Like, you should do this or you shouldn't do that, or you should sign up for the women's Bible study or you shouldn't do Bible study. It's like, I don't know. Or you should put your kids in baseball, you shouldn't. It's like, I can't tell you that. But you have to kind of know why. Right? What's causing me to say yes to this in my life? Am I avoiding? Am I this? Where am I at in our life? So to do a quick inventory, get out of the pit. Get an inventory of your time. And this is pretty basic, and this is basic thing people talk about. Where is your time going? And again, I'm sure many of those are non-negotiables. Feeding the children. You keep that on the list. Don't take it off the list. That's okay. Taking a shower, keep it on the list. Coming to marriage conferences, keep it on the list. But what are those things that your time is going to? Then that priority. Is my marriage somewhere in there? And because we matter. Marriage matters, right? Marriage matters. But there's so much we can receive from marriage as women. I believe that. It's something we go, we want to make our husbands feel loved, but we get to feel loved. That's our right as women. We get to feel loved. But we have to have time to feel loved. We have to give our husbands the opportunity to feel that love. And again, not falling into the pits that keep us from feeling loved and growing our marriage. Because when we are in a good spot with our husbands, it makes it easier to be a good mom. It makes it easier to be a good friend or be a good employee, whatever responsibilities you have in your plate. It's a source of strength for you and a source of joy to attack those harder things in your life. Oh, look at that. My time is good. I went over this a few times. I'm like, I think this is an hour. I don't know. So then these are things that are hard to make our heart feel softer. I mean, I know it's so easy to go this over there. Again, we have a list of the things they need to work on. But we can't control that. Our responsibility to the Lord is to make our hearts soft and open and fertile, like ground for intimacy to grow in, right? That's our part, is the ground soft and fertile. Your husband throws love on you, and you are ready to receive it. But if you're critical, resentful, busy, he's loving you, and you're not even seeing it, right? We're pushing him away. He should know better. He should do this. We will feel more desire for our husbands when our hearts are softened towards him. When we're critical, we don't want to be close. When we're resentful, we're just worried about justice. When we assume, the wires are crossed. We miss the moments we could connect. And when we're in a perpetual state of busy, our marriages lose the spark of what we enjoy being with them. So being a crab is not really about loving your husband. It's about following the Lord in our own attitudes. But of course, the side effect is I guarantee your husband will feel more loved. If you kind of said, hey, how would it feel if your wife didn't tell you that you were wrong? Oh, I really miss that. The good old days. I really miss her telling me that, No, he's going to go, wow, my wife's just not so worried about that. And when I didn't know this and I didn't understand this, she just said, oh, that's all right, honey. I'll tell you what it is you need to know. So I feel like we're walking along towards intimacy. We're seeing the goal of our husband going, okay, I want that thing. We're feeling loved and safe and wonderful. And it's like, but your shirt doesn't match your pants. Sorry, that happens a lot. And then where do we end up? We're in the pit again. And why did you leave your thing there? Why did you put my thing there? And we're on the way, we're walking. That's what I'm saying, ladies, we know where to go. We know how to love our husbands well. Just on our way there, we get tempted to go, but let me just let him know that his shirt doesn't match his pants. Now, if you've developed trust with your husband, he'll say thank you. My husband every single morning has to tell you, does this look okay? I don't know what matches. Just tell me. But the critical thing but he did that wrong. And then we see, we're walking there, I want to love my husband, and then they go, that's not fair. And he did this wrong, and then suddenly we're in the pit, and we're going to forget my husband. There he is, I'm gonna kiss my husband. He walks in the door, because I'm just feeling so loving toward him. But the minute he walks in, he says something, how could he not know that? Back in the pit. I don't know if that ever happened to you. Like, I could have the most loving thoughts about my husband in the world, and then all of a sudden I'm like, 180, there it goes. I'm just not interested anymore. And then, of course, we're going to spend time together. I love you, and we don't have time for that. Maybe next time. So our busy schedules, and that's sometimes, again, in our control, some of it out of our control. So that's why I wanted to challenge you this morning as I begin thinking about the ways that, where's your pit? Where do you fall into that makes your heart hardened towards your husband, resentful, assuming you did it wrong? And how can we earn trust with our husbands, right? How can we mentioned, you said mention be a safe place. And I think to be a safe place for our husbands, they have to know we have their back. We're not here just to give them a list of things they're doing wrong or things they didn't know or things they did that hurt us, but to say, hey, I'm on your side. I am not going to be falling into the pit of these things. So is this relatable at all? Am I the only person who struggles with this? Okay, thank you. This is just my story. Take it with one. And again, if there's just one thing here, I hope that you leave today going, that's the one thing. I mean, I try to keep it short to 4, but I always feel like when you have a conference like this and you hear a lot of stuff, you go home with that one thing. To go, that's the one thing I know keeps putting me in the pit. And my husband's going, what happened to my loving, sweet wife? And we're down here just dealing with all this junk. So, okay, what's that one thing you can do to get out of the pit, whether it's, you said, criticism, resentment, assuming that he knows, and being too busy. So that is my thoughts for today. I think our time is good. Is our time good? We're going to see how well Joe and I are like melded together if he finished at the same time. It was like, I think this is an hour. I think I'm an hour. And he's got different stuff over there. It's fun. So hopefully you guys can swap notes on the way home and see if you came to the same conclusions. That's our goal. He's like, go home and criticize your wife. That's the key. Very good. So Thank you very much for having me. I hope this was an encouragement to you. I hate to be negative, I really do, but I feel like we have to acknowledge the pits we fall into, otherwise we're going to stay in them, and it's no fun being in the pit. It's just no fun. We wound it for ourselves, and ultimately it spreads to other relationships in our lives as well, because it leads to our coworkers and our friends that we're all just, at least that's me. Is that good, Vicki? Did I do my job right?